All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Toon podcast. We are the Southern Hemisphere's best and only Newcastle United podcast out there. And I seem to have an echo already, so that's a fantastic start right here. Um, I think there
Sound
we
all right
go.
to me?
All sorted. The joys of going live. Welcome, everyone. With me, I've got Bobby down in Ballarat, and I've got Lee in Brisbane. How you doing today, Bobby?
Going well, mate. Getting over a good result against Arsenal, which is, it was pleasing to see, and still third in the table. All good.
And how you doing, Lee?
About the same. I think I've probably just about unclenched from the end of that game. It was. I was starting to think, it's going to turn into another Liverpool, and that because it went up to like 96 point odd minutes, didn't it? And it was only meant to be 4 or 5 extra, and I was thinking, no, it's going to happen again with time wasted. Lascelles is trying to rugby tackle people on the touch line, and he's not even playing. I was thinking this is going to end up badly, and then they get the 2 corners, and I'm like, so it took us a couple of days to unpucker, but otherwise doing all right. Craigie, you sound a bit rough though, mate. You still recovering from the Rona?
I am. Just can't seem to shift it. So I'm just. I'll do my best. I'll muster through. And if you hear me randomly coughing my guts up, just have a good laugh. Let us know your sympathy in the comments, and I'll sleep soundly the night because of them. Hopefully, anyway. But as the tagline suggests, we are going to be reviewing the Arsenal game, and we're also going to be talking a little bit about the up-and-coming FA Cup game away at Sheffield Wednesday coming up this Sunday morning for us, I believe it is. Monday morning, whenever it may be. It's over the weekend. Stupid o'clock in the morning kickoff for us, as per usual. But just before we dive into anything, just a little bit of a housekeeping of everything. So if you do like what we do, please like and subscribe to this channel. It really helps us out a lot if you give us that thumbs up and subscribe. But we also have our members program as well. So members program comes with a few little perks. Click the link on our YouTube homepage to have a little look. But to give you an idea, it's only $1.49 here in Australia, which works out about 85 pence per month back in the UK, less than the cost of your average Mars bar. And that really helps us out massively again. So if you want to do any of those, please hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe, or if you really want to become a member, and let's get on with this right now. So we're going to dive straight into the lineups. Arsenal being the home team, so they'll go first. So I'm just going to quickly bash these up. So in goal, they had Ramsdale. Defense, they got White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Zinchenko. Midfield had Partey, Xhaka, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, and Nketiah making up the midfield and attack on that one. Now that lineup, Bobby, I'll come to you on this one. Saka has obviously been their danger man all season, and he is a player banging form right now. Was there anybody else of that starting 11 that you would have been worried about once the team sheet was announced?
I was worried about all of them. They're the informed club, informed team of the season, and sitting pretty at top, and they play some really good football. They've dismantled a lot of teams. So, you've got Odegaard, who's been in unreal form, and Nketiah, who's growing as he develops as well. So Martinelli has tore us apart in the past, and got the veterans in Xhaka and Partey and Zinchenko as well. So look, a formidable team, and it was a big effort by us in going to Arsenal and playing the way we did.
Yeah, your thoughts on that lineup, Lee?
No, roughly about the same. Probably what we would have expected as well. I think Odegaard, as Bobby says, there has been in really good form. He's pulling the strings in the midfield area, chipping in with a few goals here and there as well. And I think key to not losing was to slow him down or to even contain him completely if we could. Martinelli down the wing, he's had our pants down loads of times in the past. Saka, of course, likes to score the goals this season. He's doing quite well. Zinchenko, pretty important for them. And, then you've got Ramsdale at the back, who was a pretty decent keeper. So, and then on the bench, they've got the likes of that young Vieira and one or two others who are pretty good to bring on. It was always going to be a tough ask going to Arsenal and trying to get something out of it. I mean, they're up the top for a reason. That their team is working really well, and kind of what you expected, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, well, I mean, no team has went to the Emirates this season in the league, at least, and has took anything more than a point away. And no team has kept a clean sheet. So we'll dive more into that as we get into the game. But would have been a massive achievement to get anything more from the lads. But this is Newcastle's starting 11, so I'll go through this one. As expected, Nick Pope in goal. Trippier wearing the captain's armband. Shaw, Botman and Byrne making up the back four. Bruno, Longstaff, Joe Willock, Almiron, Joe Linton, with Callum Wilson up front making the rest of the team there. Now, there was one surprise addition to that bench, which nobody really expected, to be honest, and that was the return of Martin Dubravka. Were either of you two very surprised that he wanted to cut his loan spell short? I'll come to you first on that one, Lee.
Yeah, I'm just confused by that whole situation, to be quite honest with you. Yes, I could understand Dubravka not wanting to sit on the bench, and then he gets an opportunity to go to a club like Man United, and he takes it. That's fine. I mean, that so far that makes sense. But then he goes there, and I think by the end of it, he's basically like third choice almost. He played maybe 2 or 3 games. He didn't have an awful lot to do at any point. The rumor is, or from what Eddie Howe says, actually, is that Dubravka himself chose to come back, which is interesting in and of itself. But then I didn't really expect him to be anywhere near the squad, because what does the squad think about a guy who nicked off at the first opportunity and then chooses to come back again when it's not working out for him, and then is in the squad, matchday squad straight away? I mean, I know Darlow, God almighty, how many times have I talked about Darlow on this podcast? He's horrendous, but at least he's stayed here. He hasn't he hasn't turncoated and then kind of whinged to come back. Yeah, it's just a very strange thing. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still going to end up warming the bench. So what has he actually gained by this entire episode, if not just to say he used to play for Man United for 6 months or whatever it is? It's been a very, very bizarre situation, and I am quite surprised he's got straight back into the squad, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
it might just be honest, pragmatism from Eddie Howe.
It was definitely a strange one. Straight let him go in the first place, but the fact he's back and already in the on the bench. What were your thoughts on that one, Bobby? And what were your thoughts on the starting 11? Strongest we could possibly put out?
On the starting 11, I think I was quite happy. Callum Wilson back in the team, obviously, to give us that cutting edge up front. Longstaff and Willock have put in some hard yards and deserve to retain their place, despite what some were saying about Longstaff after Leeds. But on Dubravka, I've made my feelings known. I'm not really keen on him to be part of the squad. I think what he did was a dog move. He wanted to go, and hopefully that in January the rumours that he'll be sold, or there's a couple of clubs interested in him. Maybe we can facilitate that, because whilst he is a good number 2, I think I think he is a quality number 2. I just didn't like the way he left, and luckily I was a bit surprised he was straight back into the squad.
Yeah, I don't know if it came through before there, but this might just be pure pragmatism from Eddie Howe. Like Karius. I mean, what the hell happened to Karius? He was here, and then the next thing you know, there's talk about him being here for the rest of the season, and then he just disappears into thin air quicker than Lewis. And then you're left with. I mean, if you assume for a minute that Karius is buggered off or is ill or something and he's not going to play, then you're left with Darlow as your number 2. And is Gillespie still at the club? Because he'd be number 3, wouldn't he? So then I think just out of pure pragmatism, Eddie Howe probably just went, all right, get him back, stick him in as the subs as a number 2. He'll not be happy, but evidently he's not any more happy at Man United. And so from the team's perspective, in the sense of having a capable keeper to come on in case Nick Pope gets injured, maybe just get through this period and then get rid of him in the summer. I actually expected him to get sold this window. That's why I assumed he came back, but I don't know. It's one of those mysteries, isn't it?
It is, and one will probably not fully understand until it all comes out in the public. Once maybe is flogged this window or the next, we will find out. But getting in the game then, so it started as expected, quite fast paced, with Arsenal having the lion's share of possession. passing the ball around quite nicely, and it was instantly identifiable that they were targeting our left-hand side, knowing that Burn is probably the weakest defender out of the four of them. And Saka, who is probably 2 foot shorter than Dan Burn, was always going to give him the run around. He's always going to be a little bit trickier. He's always going to try and get in behind him. And that's exactly what they started doing the first opening 5-10 minutes. But then Eddie decided to switch things up a little bit and gave him a lot of cover in terms of Willock tracking back and also Joe Linton. And that kind of nullified that side of the attack from Arsenal. And it was pretty evident to see that Eddie Howe picked up on that very, very quickly. Were you both very impressed with how quickly that tactic was brought in? Or do you think that was always the plan from the get-go? And it was just literally a case of putting that plan into action once the attack was always going to come down that side? I'll go with you first, Bobby.
I was surprised it wasn't a tactic we employed from the start. Maybe it was, and maybe the players were just misreading the running patterns or what Arsenal were doing as well. There's two teams at tango, so maybe there was an adjustment needed. But the first 5 minutes it looked scary, to be honest. I thought we're in a lot of trouble here, and Saka's been in some brilliant form. So, I think Eddie will always find the adjustments, but it takes the players as well to make it work. And we'll touch on a few of the players later on, but I thought there was a couple of players that deserve special mentions to keep Saka in line. And it all played a part in us deserving what we got out of the game.
Question for you here, Lee. Eddie has been maybe a little bit slow in changing tactics, maybe bringing on subs, switching play, that type of thing. Were you pleased with how quickly this change in defence or cover for Burn was brought in?
Please, absolutely, yeah, because we were getting skinned for the first 10 to 15. If he hadn't have changed things, and Eddie's is evidently a clever man, if he hadn't have changed things, I doubt very much we got into half-time 0-0. The way Arsenal were, I was actually, having not watched a lot of Arsenal, I was actually quite impressed with their own high press. It was interesting to see how they came at us when they know that we are a high pressing team as well. And they've got a lot of pace, and they've got very skillful and clever players. I've said it before, I'm still slightly worried about that left side balance of the team. Dan Burn isn't a left back by trade, he's a centre back. It does, of course, allow you to have essentially 3 centre backs on the pitch, but it then also does have that issue where he needs help sometimes. And if you've got ASM, say Maxi, in front of him, are you even going to get that help? And I suspect that's probably why ASM, even though he's fit, isn't getting a lot of games right now, because we need someone else who can actually come back and help Dan Burn when he needs it. And obviously Joe Linton's doing that right now. But no, it was. Sometimes you don't even notice these things. Sometimes you just think, well, we've weathered the storm, because you're playing the league leaders. They're absolutely flying, scoring goals. You can kind of expect they'll come at you. They're at home, and you just need to kind of weather the first 5 to 10 minutes, and then you can start imposing yourself. And so I think that's probably what I sort of assumed had happened. But having heard about the fact that he asked the wingers to come back and help out, it was timely, and I think that was probably instrumental in getting something out of this game.
Yeah, I think it was pretty evident as well that we switched from the traditional 4-3-3 that we're so used to a 4-5-1 for the majority of the game, to be honest, as Wilson was pretty much a lone figure up front, which is not something we used to see of Wilson. Normally, he's had a fair bit of support, bit of help over the past few games, regardless of the opposition. But yeah, he was a very lonely figure on this one, but obviously it worked. As the game started to progress, we found our feet in the game. We started to string a couple of passes together. Again, a lot of play coming down that right-hand side, which seems to be a tradition of us again. Very little attack coming down that left-hand side. Whether, again, that was to protect Burn, we won't know. But yeah, we started to get a few crosses in. Wilson, I think he had a glancing header just wide, or one where he just was inches away from toe poking it in. So we were getting there. We were starting to cause a few frustrations for them. And I think it was evident in the fans as well, because the fans started to get a bit quiet at the library. I mean, the Etihad. So, it was a game where we were trying to impose ourselves. But were you surprised at how little of chances Arsenal did actually create within their attack? Because they were great in the middle three, in the middle of the park, and moving forward into attack. But they didn't really test Pope at all. And was that something you were surprised, or were you just pleased that our defence has been as rock solid as it has been all season, Bobby?
I'm not surprised anymore. We've got the best defence, I think. I'm starting to get used to the fact that we're a hard to break down side, and Botman and Shah get a lot of the credit for this, but it's the whole side, the way we press from the front and limit the chances for the opposition is really good. But I think I can't remember a Newcastle side ever being this defensively astute, and we raven about the defence, but it's good to see. And I think there was a comment there that we could have played another 30 minutes and Arsenal wouldn't have scored. It's just good to see that we've got this defence that we know we can count on. And, once we get Isaac back and a few other pieces, maybe in January, we might hurt teams going the other way a bit more.
Lee, as well, when we are now under attack now, are you a lot more composed and a little bit less stress-free as a fan, knowing that we've got a solid defence? Or is your all still twitching like a rabbit's nose, thinking, here we go again?
He's just unclenched,
you just too much scar tissue from previous years, and you're just trying to push those memories to the back of your mind, but knowing ultimately this is Newcastle United and we will do Newcastle United things.
It's going to take some time. It's still all very new. As Bobby says, I'm literally just unclenching. So, no, I haven't. I'm not ready to change my natural feelings about Newcastle. If I even can ever. I mean, I'm not even sure I'll ever be able to be honest. When you haven't lost for so long, it becomes the norm, and it takes a fair amount to shift that kind of institutional feelings, if you like. I mean, Dexter's saying they wouldn't have scored an extra 30 minutes, but we definitely didn't want another 30 minutes. I mean, the way it was going, they had an extra 6 or 7 as it was. It was getting really edge of the seat sort of stuff. No, I'm never gonna. I mean, this is probably one of the best defenses I can think of that we've had, despite the fact that Dan Burn's out of position. Got a lot of faith in Nick Pope, and he showed it again in this match with his low down save with his leg, tremendous save. And he's got pretty good distribution as well, which is a rarity for our keepers. But it's going to take a long time to get used to this. Like any match, I go into any of these games we played this season, and you're asking for predictions, and 9 times out of 10, mate, I'm thinking we're going to get beaten. I'm thinking we're going to get beaten almost every single time. That's not necessarily me being negative, as everyone knows. I'm super duper positive, but it's just that you get so used. Hey, I am. You just get so used to it being the norm that it's very, very difficult to shift your mental state on these things. But I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. I suppose the nearest thing I can think of was when we had Colaccini at the back, and he was pretty good at defence. And for a little while there, it felt like we had a pretty good sort of centre back. And I can't remember what the rest of that team was. We had Debussy and all the rest of it, and they were all right, But the likes of Sven Botman, man, he's an absolute machine. Absolute machine. He's I mean, his ball passing is unreal. He should be in midfield, man. He's unreal. Absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
His vision and his passing, his calmness, absolutely unbelievable. What was he, 32 million? Absolute steal.
Yeah, an absolute bargain. Is it 32 million, 23 years old, I think he is. Nowhere near his prime yet. And for all those naysayers out there that said we should have moved on to Tarkowski because Botman, the chase was going on for too long and he doesn't really want to come and he's not worth a hassle, I'd like to buy them a pint now and just ask them for an apology, because they couldn't be any further wrong if they wanted to be. That man is just a mountain and a brick wall all rolled into one.
Tarkowski's having a good season, to be fair, though. I mean,
he is, but he's no Sven Botman, is he?
Well, I don't watch him every day, but I'm going to say no on that.
Bobby, if you had the option, Tarkowski or Sven Botman in the starting lineup.
Come on, mate. Fuck's sake. I think Botman, in my opinion, is already the best Newcastle centre back that I've seen in my lifetime. There's not a huge amount of competition, to be honest, but
No.
yeah, he's already there. So, I think the only challenger would have been Woodgate and possibly Colaccini, but I think Botman already stands head and shoulders above, and fair play to Shah as well. I think he doesn't get as much credit because obviously Botman's the new shiny toy we're all looking at, but he's been immense as well. So it's all looking pretty good.
It is. It's pretty solid. Now, moving on to one of the more controversial chances in the game, and this was the potential penalty claim for Newcastle United. Now, I can't remember what minute it was, but there was a free kick or a long ball swung up, and Dan Burn looks like he was going to get it. And at first, I initially thought it was a penalty. I thought Dan Burn had been pretty much dragged to the ground by not just one, but two Arsenal players. It did go to VAR. It went to the big screen, in which there was a party who was supposedly the guilty offender, dragged on the ground. No penalty given. Now, we had this little bit of chat yesterday between myself, Lee, Jack, I think everybody else who had their own opinion on it. I still think that was a penalty. Lee, you said it wasn't a penalty. Bobby, I don't think I got your opinion on that one. What did you think?
Not a penalty. No.
No?
So
I'm the only one of the seven of us that thinks that was a penalty then. Oh, well.
No. I mean, if you're going to pay that penalty, then you've got to pay the other one the other way as well, and can't be upset about it. I mean, this happens so many times a game where, you get bundled over in the box or, a little bit of a side barge and all that, but definitely not a penalty.
Now, one thing I will agree with.
The problem is that Dan Burn, as the ball's coming in, he's actually already leaning and pushing over one of the Arsenal defenders. That's before he gets nudged in the back by an Arsenal defender. So he's already kind of infringing on Arsenal player. He's already gone down because of that, because the other guy's collapsing under his immense lanky weight. And then he gets the nudge that sends him over, Dan Burn. So there's, the first phase of that is Dan Burn fouling Arsenal. So you could never give it as a penalty, in my opinion.
Well, as I said yesterday, I'll respectively disagree with you.
No, you're wrong.
Lee, even if I was right, you'd still say I was wrong. So, But
you're wrong.
One thing I will say, if the ref gives that penalty, then he absolutely gives the penalty for the next thing I'm going to come to, and that is the Arsenal shirt pull from Dan Burn. So he was involved in penalty claims at both ends of the pitch. But before we actually get to the shirt pull and whether you think it was a penalty or not, did you think it was a free kick in the build-up to that? Lee, I'll come with you first on that one.
Not in a million friggin' years, man. That was one of the most shocking calls in the whole match, man. It was a tremendous tackle from Joe Linton, I think it was, wasn't it? Coming on the outside of the man. And he's at full stretch. He toe pokes the ball out of the way. And was it Saka who went down like a sack of shit? Saka went down like a sack of shit. There you go. He did that all game as well, to be fair. And he stayed down for bloody ages. And we're the ones who get blamed for time wasting. But no, he went down like a sack of shit. Buys the free kick. So no, it should never have been a free kick in the first place. But that was awarded. You still have to deal with the consequences of it. And it was never a penalty.
You do. You in the same boat as Lee on that one, Bobby? Shouldn't have been a free kick to begin with?
No. Did he get a yellow as well?
No, he picked up the yellow in the second half.
Okay, I thought it was for that. But anyway, yeah, definitely the perfect tackle, got the ball. The ref, I think he was influenced by the crowd, and I think, the fans were up in ends at that stage anyway. The frustration levels were high with them, so I think he just got played by the crowd and the Arsenal players who were falling around and carrying on. But as Lee said, you got to take the decision and deal with what happened in the box. Again, I don't think it's a penalty, but it's more of a penalty than what we had down the other end. So, but it's still not a penalty. So ref got that one right.
Yeah, so getting onto that penalty, so from that resulting free kick, the ball is swung in from our left. Dan Burn is trying to swap shirts with, I can't remember who was actually fouled, or claiming to be fouled anyway, but Dan Burn's trying to swap his shirt before half-time. And you can see the shirts getting twisted around and everything like that. And it did look dubious, to be honest, but I'm going to try and quote what Shearer said here on his after-match summary, that if you give that as a penalty, you're given 10 penalties per game. for that type of situation. Do you agree with that from Shearer, Lee?
Well, you give 10 penalties away for that kind of infringement until the players stop doing it. That's the whole point of giving penalties in the first place. You meant to discourage people from doing that kind of thing. So I'm not sure that argument really holds water. You might say, like, if it was introduced right now, you'd have that sort of situation. But obviously, players have to adapt to new rules every season. I mean, to me, that was probably as close to a penalty as we got in this game. It may have been because he didn't give the previous one that he thought he couldn't give this one. I'm not sure. The ref, I think, was a little bit up and down this whole game. Didn't seem to be in complete control of the proceedings. But I think we've been done by that exact same situation. I don't know if it was this season, but it feels like it wasn't that long ago. Maybe it's the end of last season where one of our guys is grabbing a shirt and gives away the penalty. And so I wouldn't have been at all surprised if that had been given as well. Arsenal have this conspiracy complex. Apparently, I've been reading their forums like I do. And they're all saying, oh, the PMAL, the Professional Managers Association, what the hell that is, they're all against Arsenal. They don't want them to win and stuff. But to be honest, I think the referee he was probably just trying to balance things up. But I wouldn't, like I say, I would not have been surprised if that was given. That was more of a penalty than the one against Dan Burn.
If that was happened to us, would you been a bit pissed off in terms of the penalty not being awarded to?
I think naturally you would be. I think memory serves me correctly. Last year at the Emirates, I think it was one of Howe's first games. Something like that happened to us. A shirt pull in the box, and we were up in arms on the coverage as well. So, you see things through rose-tinted glasses all the time and think that you should get a penalty. So these Arsenal fans that are carrying on like pork chops on Twitter and on the forums, I don't venture to the forums, but Lee keeps us up to date with those.
I'll live on them.
Yeah, I think, you've got blind loyalty, don't you? And you think you're being unjust. So if it was to us, we'd probably be talking about it now and go, well, that's a penalty. So, it is what it is.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Wasn't it Longstaff who got dragged back in a game, maybe it's even this season, and we got nothing for it? I mean, his shirt's almost like kind of 3 men long at the point where the screenshot's taken and you get now for it. And so it's once again, as always, the situation with football, it's the consistency that's the issue. And I don't even know if this time it's VAR's issue. If not, I think it might just be general referees' consistency. And whenever you've got humans involved, you're always going to have the situation. There's very little you can do about it ultimately. You're always going to have people who decide one thing or the other.
Absolutely. So moving on from that, we're literally, I think it was 42, 43 minutes in. Newcastle get a corner again on our left-hand side. The ball is swung by Trippier. There's a little flick on, and it falls to Joe Linton at the back post. Now, between the two of you and myself, who thought it was in? Because I did. He should have scored that goal. That was effectively an open goal. That should have put us 1-0 up at the break, and that would literally put the cat amongst the pigeons. I know you were a little bit furious about it in the private chat we were having on WhatsApp where the laser game was going on. But Bobby, do you think that was a poor miss, or the ball came at him too quick and he done the best he could?
Jigsaw Joe.
Joe's biggest issue is when he gets into the box, he thinks too much. And I think that's what happened this occasion again. I love him like anything, and he was one of the players I'll mention later of giving a lot of credit to, but I wish he could put some of these chances away in the box and he'd be talked about as, one of the best players in the league if he could. But that was a bad miss, and he should have put it away.
Your thoughts on it, Lee?
Right, should have. Oh, it was horrendous. Christ. I think it does take 1 or 2 touches on the way through, but he is pretty much unmarked. Their keeper's nowhere near that corner because he's been at the front end hoping to, get the cross in and save it. And it just falls to him. And he, like Dex says there, Jigsaw Joe just goes to pieces in the box, man. He hasn't got any composure inside the box. Yeah, I mean, he has scored the odd goal. So he can do it when it suits or if he's got enough time to think about it. But his reaction to skills in the box aren't that great. And, had we scored that goal, who knows what would happen. But we could have quite conceivably held up for a win. It wasn't to be.
It wasn't. So that brings on to half time. Now, going into half time, both teams, if I remember rightly, were yellow carded. The first one was for Bruno. In that first one, it was not necessarily a stupid yellow card to receive, but it was a stupid decision from the ref to award the yellow card, because you then had to then pretty much give every similar type of tackle a yellow card as well, which kind of took the gloss off the game in the fact that you're not going to get any strong tackles or anything. I think overall there was 9 yellow cards in the entire game. But having that many just before half time, both teams came out in the second half a little bit subdued, not wanting to go fully fledged, fully impacting the tackles or anything like that until maybe 10, 15 minutes in, when Arsenal tried to open the floodgates and attack us from left, right, and centre. But because again, that left side was just being well defended by us. And even Martinelli, who has got a good few years on his opposite number in Trippier, he was well marshalled by Trippier and Almiron as well. Almiron, I think, done a cracking job tracking back when he was even replaced by Murphy. He done a decent job. But that second half, it was pretty much a defensive masterclass in how to see out a game if you know you're not going to get any chances to try and win it. Now, there's something Dex said on Twitter. Is this the best defense you've ever seen from a Newcastle United team? Would you agree with that, Bobby?
Yes.
Easy as that,
I don't. There's not been much competition there, has there? Like, following Newcastle since 1994 or 1993, whenever I started, defense hasn't been in our sort of language, has it? Being a Newcastle fan, I think it's always been our Achilles heel. I think it's something that I know that it's a bit foreign watching at the moment. A club that's just so resolute, and with the likes of Trippier and Pope with the experience, and Shah, and then you got Botman and Byrne doing a good cracking job as well. I think this is definitely the best Newcastle United defence since '93.
That's a bold claim. Now, your thoughts on the defence, Lee, and whether you think at times they got lucky, whether it was a professional say out and we've done what we have to do to close the game out to see Arsenal through, because there were a few chances where Arsenal maybe have misplaced a pass. I think Odegaard was a prime example where it was a pass come shot and it fell to an Arsenal player and he just scuffed it. Now, 9 times out of 10, that ends up in the back of net. So Lady Luck was a bit on our side right there. And you've got to kind of expect a little bit of that, because we had that with Brighton away this season as well. It was actually a very similar performance. In terms of our defence, where does this defence rank for you in terms of what you've seen since you started following the Toon?
Oh, it's up there. I think we've already touched on this earlier on there, but no, it's a good defence. I would say, though, that the second half was, well, you've kind of said it yourself, it was more a case of trying not to lose the game than to actually try and win it. Still, I mean, I'll probably go against what everyone thinks, but I still kind of feel a little bit disappointed when we play like that. I think it's probably just an indication of where we are right now as a squad as much as anything else. Eddie Howe obviously gets through the first half and he's thinking, all right, there's a good chance here, 45 minutes, there's a good chance of walking away with a point here. Let's maybe set up two. And when we did this, we started sitting very, very deep. Not very, very, very super deep, but like it was deep enough to be different to what we normally play. And we couldn't string passes together. We were just lumping it into space out of desperation. Every time we got out, there was that time when Wood gets the ball and he's in on goal and he could have just took a shot or something, and he kind of stops and pulls it back and then ultimately loses it. It's like it felt to me like that we respected Arsenal an awful lot in that second half, and we were more concerned about not losing the point that we had at that time rather than trying to go and claim all 3. And you never know when you push these teams. There was a lot of exertion from Arsenal that first half, as it was from Newcastle, and they are capable of mistakes themselves. I don't think we pressed them an awful lot, and I think in some regards, it was quite a fair degree of luck that managed to get us through that second half. But again, I think that's just a reflection of where this squad is right now. Like we're still very early in this project, man. Like it's only been going for a year and a bit. The squad depth, we haven't really touched on it, but the squad depth is paper thin, really. When you bring on likes of Murphy and Wood, kind of highlights that you don't really have all that many top level kind of options on the bench, and we will get there. But for right now, I think we just had to do what we had to do in order to get through that game, and then we can start looking at the next one. Pragmatism again.
Yeah. So there was one real good chance for Arsenal towards the end of the game with Pope saving down on low or with his left leg. Real good build-up play from Arsenal. A few little 1-2s, played it straight to the back. But Pope was on form again, and he kept his 6th clean sheet in a row now. We haven't conceded since Southampton, which that is again, that is just outrageous. I don't defend well, but you still expect to concede the odd 1 or 2 goals and still pick up results. But have 6 clean sheets on the bounce is just superb. And Nick Pope, he's starting to get a reputation as being one of the best and most reliable keepers out there. To be fair, when we first signed him as a replacement for Dubravka, I actually thought he was going to be a number 2 to Dubravka. But I'm so happy he's not now, because he is far better keeper out of the two. And in terms of his reputation within the club and within the league, he's got to be considered one of the best keepers in Europe now, you reckon? I'll go with you on that one, Bobby.
Europe? Let's say at the end of this season, I think he's done well. When we first signed him, I was a bit, playing at Burnley, kicks the ball long, gets, different game plan. We wanted to play the ball out of the back line a bit more, but when you looked in it deep, he plays as a sweeper keeper, so it sort of suits the pressing game that we've got. Look, he's been outrageous. His shot-stopping ability is very, very good, and his control of the box is very good as well. So he's been unreal, but I'll just wait till the end of the year to start saying if he's been one of the best keepers in Europe or not.
I mean, you got to say though, Craig, that he's got like the best defense in front of him in the whole league. I can't remember that many things he's had to do this season, to be quite frank. I mean, yes, when it's that situation like that, you want him to be ready when the time comes to do the right kind of save and the effective kind of save. And so far, I haven't seen him spill a bloody ball into the frigging on-Russian opposition either, which is one big plus. He has over Dubravka, God's sake, do my tits in every time he did that. But truth be told, Poppy hasn't had to do a great deal of real top-notch saving, because he's got the whole team in front of him as an organism kind of moving around and doing a lot of the defensive work before the ball even gets near him. Yes, he's great, but best in Europe? Don't know.
No, I'm not saying the best, just to be regarded as one of right now, just based on his form.
Well, he went to the World Cup,
out of the top 1,000, out of the top 100, what is it?
Within the top 5 leagues, he's got to be considered as one of the best keepers in Europe on form right now with the top 5 leagues, in my opinion. Purely 6 clean sheets is not something that is easily come by. Man City have managed it, Arsenal have managed it, Barca, Real, they haven't, Bayern Munich, they haven't. I know, again, you mentioned before that the defense plays a big part of that, but it's very easy for a goalkeeper to potentially switch off when you're having a very, very quiet game, lapse of concentration, whatever, because you haven't had much action. But when he has been called upon, he's been ridiculously solid every single time, and he deserves as much credit as that back four is getting, in my opinion. You don't agree?
No, he does. No, he does, absolutely. Of course, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve credit, but I mean, if you're going to start looking at who's the best keeper in Europe, you're going to have to look at the stats, like how many saves has he made, how many goal-stopping saves has he made, how many pinpoint distributions, I suppose, and all this kind of stuff. Like, just saying that he's doing well because the defense has kept the ball miles away from him isn't really like a good metric, in my opinion. You're wrong.
I think there's takes something, like he would be used to at Burnley having to be on for 90 minutes. He knows he's in for a tough. And I remember when he was at Burnley watching the highlights, and he was always involved in keeping the minute, and they got some big draws or results against some of the big clubs because he'd have a ripper game and save 6 or 7 shots during the game. But when you expected that that's going to happen, your concentration is going to be a little bit better. So, full credit to him that he probably doesn't have to do as much, but, like in this game, dying minutes that he pulled out that save, he's still got to be on when he's called upon. So, no, we got to give him credit. He's been sensational, and I'm happy to praise him, but just not one of the best keepers in Europe at this stage.
Well, we will see. We'll get some of the stats up. Now, moving on to the full-time stats. This is pretty obvious, to be honest, just going off the lit. So Arsenal, 67% possession to our 33, 17 shots with 4 of them on target. We had 8 shots, 1 of which was on target, which, to be honest, I can't even really remember that shot from us. 5 corners for Arsenal, 5 for us, so that's even split. Fouls, 10 for Arsenal, 16 for us. Now, if anything, I thought it'd be a bit more balanced on the foul side of things, because in one part of the game, no team could string together 3 or 4 passes without the ref blowing his frigging whistle. The ref had a pretty horrific game, I think, in all of our combined opinion. He didn't get the majority of calls right. He dished out yellow cards way too early and made a rod for his own back of that one. In terms of the refereeing performance, where does that one stand for you so far this league with what we've had, Bobby, this season?
We've had some doozies, haven't we?
We have.
It was bad, but it wasn't. I don't think it was as bad as we've had. I think he lost control of the game a bit earlier than he should have. But I think in all honesty, it was a pretty high intensity game, and it was average, but it was the refereeing's shit anyway. So being average means it was shit.
Your thoughts on the refereeing performance of that game, Lee?
I think it was just a consequence of a team that didn't want to concede and has the best defense, but is also renowned for being high press and in your face and giving you no time and snapping at the heels, versus an Arsenal team. That was Newcastle I was referring to there, and an Arsenal team who are desperately trying to maintain a position at the top and win a trophy for the first time in God knows how long. And I think it was just a consequence of 2 teams and 2 sets of players just really going at it, and a referee who didn't really want to allow any sort of tackle to go. You can kind of tell straight from the first few minutes what kind of referee it's going to be. Like I called it in the game at Leeds. I was like, the first few calls, I was like, this guy is going to stop everything, and so it was. And when you get those kind of games, they're naturally bitty anyway. I don't necessarily think he gave the yellow card out too early. I mean, if it's a yellow worthy tackle, it should be a yellow card regardless of what time of the game it was. Like that for example, that penalty, that we got, do you not give that penalty in the first few minutes against whoever it was? I've forgotten the name of it.
Leicester.
But we got a penalty in the first few minutes. Was it Leicester? Right. Do you not give him the penalty because it's dead early in the game? No, you give him a penalty because it's a foul in the box. So if someone does a foul and it's a yellow card worthy, and I can't quite remember the Bruno incident, to be honest with you, then you have to give a yellow card. That doesn't necessarily mean he has to then start dishing out to everybody else. So I don't really go along with that argument. I just think it was, generally speaking, a very bitty game, a very heel snapping kind of game, the kind of game where nobody wants to give an inch. And the referee didn't want to allow any play to continue at almost any point. So I think that's probably why it was. I don't think it was a particularly terrible performance by the ref. I don't think he was biased to one of us or the other, put it that way.
Not claiming he was biased towards the other team. I just thought he had a shocker. But again, that's what we're used to at Premier League level. The quality of refs has gone down so much over the past few years. It's so blatantly obvious. It's not even funny anymore. But getting on from that now, and this was all evident over social media literally as the final whistle went. Our time-wasting tactics, let's call it. Players going down, whether they were feigning injury, whether they had cramp, whether they were just tired, passing the ball about, not really in the spirit of the game. What were your thoughts on the time wasting, and did it have echoes of Liverpool for you, Lee?
Oh God Almighty! All right, well, I said at the start it was starting to feel very much like the Liverpool game, where you shithouse your way through the game, using all the dark arts, using the gamesmanship that you can use to try and get to the end and get the result that you want. And it did, as I said earlier, it did feel a lot like we were going to pinch in the arse again, because they got an extra 5 minutes at the end of the 90, and it was 96 point odd. I think maybe it's even hit 97. I'm not exactly sure by the time the whistle went. And it had all those echoes of the Liverpool game. You know, they were up in our arses right at the last few minutes. They had a couple of corners in a row. It's bedlam inside that box. Anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. And yeah, so I mean that's partially the reason why it took ages to unclench, to be quite frankly. And as for the time wasting itself, it's only effective if it works. Against Liverpool, it didn't really work because we got screwed over at the end. This time round, it did work, you'd have to say. And it opens up that additional argument or question about how do we deal with it. I'm not sure if that's what you're going to ask next. You know, the World Cup, the way they did it by stop-starting time in the VAR box. I've got my own opinions on that as well. But I'd rather see us not play like that. But I think, again, it just comes down to where we are as a squad. We only do this against the teams that are difficult to break down and beat, or have the threat to beat us. We don't do it against teams that we're happily beaten. So, you know, as the squad gets better, I would expect these kind of shit house tactics to slowly get phased out. At least that's what I hope, anyway.
And your thoughts on the time wasting, Bobby? Was it well calculated? Was it not in the spirit of the game? And would you like us to see us? Would you like to see us go toe to toe with Arsenal for a full 90 minutes, knowing what the potential consequences could be?
I trust in Eddie to get it right, to get the tactics right. I think you do it, as Lee mentioned. We don't do it against any other clubs than, you know, the ones that are really hard to break down, and the ones that are worth millions and millions, worth more than what we have, got more talent on the pitch than what we do. So it is sort of a where we are at the moment, you know, with our squad, our depth and everything like that. We've got to do these, but in the same breath, we can't be unhappy with what Leeds did to us the week before with the same tactics, and then, you know, get defensive when other clubs fans are having to go at us for it. So, you know, in the spirit of the game, like, that's just fucking nonsense, to be honest. Spirit of the game. Your spirit of the game is to win within the rules of the game, and there was nothing against the rules in what we did. And as Lee mentioned earlier, Saka was on the floor for more times than bloody we wasted time anyway. So it goes both ways. So I think, you know, a lot of it gets brought up by journalists and media and fans, and then it becomes this echo chamber of, oh, we're time wasted. But in the reality was, yeah, maybe we did a little bit, so did they. You know, get on with it.
It comes on to my next point, which you briefly mentioned just before, Lee. The way time added on was worked out at the World Cup was all done by VAR and the officials back wherever. Would you like to see that rule implemented in the Premier League next season, or you're dead against it? I'll come to you first on that one, Lee.
No, I don't want to see it. Not the way that's implemented in the World Cup. The problem with it is that it's completely opaque. You have no idea what's going to happen at the end of the 90 or the 45. There's no way to know. And I suppose that's kind of the same as it is now. So is there real improvement in that regard? No. The other thing is you're relying on VAR to do it, at least currently, and they can't even get their own jobs right. So why the hell we're going to trust them to start and stop a watch? Do you trust them to start and stop a watch? Probably they're fucking that up as well, because I don't. So I don't want to go that, but mostly it's because you can't really predict or see it. Now, if the intention is just simply to give the time back, then I would rather have a way that we can see it as fans what the clock is doing. And the most obvious way to do that, in my opinion, is to have a clock somewhere in the stadium, and that might be a technical issue that needs solving. But you could even use the advertising hoardings. I think we do that at St. James's Park in the corner. There's a little clock somewhere. You could have that. And just have the clock stop every time the ball goes out. If it's such an important thing to do it that way. There's no arguments. There's no suspicion about did VAR get it right or wrong. There's no questions about it. You just see the clock stop. You see the clock start, and it's done that way. I mean, having said that, though, you're going to be there all day. You're going to be there all day waiting to get out. It's going to be like bloody NFL. You're going to get nowhere, and it's going to be there for like 3 hours. It's going to be you're going to miss your bus.
Do you agree with that, Bobby? Or have you got your own thoughts on that one?
No, I echo the same thoughts. I think this is the greatest game in the world and has been for hundreds of years. We got to stop messing with rules. I say it in locally with the AFL, and I'll say it with your sport. We've managed to do this for years and years, and it's, you know, it can cause controversies here and there, but just leave it alone. You know, and I didn't like what I saw at the World Cup. I hated it. In fact, that was just, you know, I thought it was shit. But also, the World Cup's a tournament, and it's a you know, win at all cost every game. So it's a different to a league. So yeah, don't touch it. Leave it as is, and you know, I think we're just better off not worrying about it.
Now, before we get to the league table, I just want to talk about Mikel Arteta in his actions on the touchline. And that actually brings us to a question that we've got here from NUFC fan 1892. Seems to be a bit of a regular. This question here, given Arteta and Klopp's actions this season, should managers / coaches get a stadium ban if red carded, as they can still influence the game from the stands and so on? Come to you first on that one, Bobby.
Can they get a stadium ban if recarded? I don't think their influence, if they're in the stands, is that big anyway. So I don't mind either way. You know, I don't think it matters, to be honest. For drama, I don't mind them being in the stand because the vision goes to them and they can't influence much, and they're on their telephone, and then you see the reception not working to the assistant manager, and it causes all this other stuff. So look, I don't think it's a big thing, but I will talk about the hysterics and the carry on by Arteta and Klopp and the likes like that. It's just fucking ludicrous. They're absolute clowns. They just need to stop. And, you know, I wish that Big Dog just laid him out, really. I was hoping he'd just punch him in the fucking gob, because what a tool. What an absolute tool that was. And it showed his unprofessionalism and the panic in the game from him. So, you know, is what it is.
Your thoughts on that question, Lee, and on Arteta and Klopp's actions so far this season as well?
God, how long have we got? For the question, if you bring that back up, yeah, thanks for the question, NUFC fan 1892, fan of the show. Well, I mean, slightly mute in the sense that Arteta didn't get a red card anyway. What I want to know is, what's the point in those technical areas if they're just allowed to roam up and down the field anyway? Because my understanding is that Arteta was in and out of that box all the time. And I think that's probably one of the things that Lascelles was whinging about when he was interfering with the throw-in. He was like pointing back at Arteta saying, well, look, this guy is interfering all the way down the line here. He's, you know, you're letting him just do what he wants. He's constantly shouting at the linesmen and the fourth officials. He doesn't seem to have any air of decorum when the game is going on. You can kind of look at it and think, well, that's just him being passionate, and you know, maybe some of that is passion, but there needs to be a certain amount of restraint as well, because otherwise you turn it into a circus. And you know, there's enough clowns in the officials' side of things. We don't need any more clowns added to the whole arrangement with all the fans and the players and everything else. We've got enough of them as it is. We don't need the managers. And the other thing is, of course, managers are leaders of their clubs. You know, they're the people who are supposed to be setting examples from the very top all the way down. Some of these players are very young and perhaps impressionable. And you know, you watched Eddie Howe; he was very calm. And when Arteta comes over and starts pointing in his face around the fourth official, Eddie Howe's like, "Okay, calm down, just calm down." And then he comes back for more. Arteta, he's like, da, and Eddie Howe's like, all right, that's fine. And then he starts having to go again. And then Eddie starts to lose his cool a little bit, you know, and he's just starts to be like, sit your stupid ass down, sort of thing, you know. It just isn't. It isn't a very good look. It's a terrible look. Is it passion only? I don't know. Maybe it is, but it you know, if it starts leaking into the players, and you saw a few times the players crowding around the referee, the Arsenal players that is, and not Newcastle do it as well. But I mean, Arsenal as a team were crowding around the referee, demanding free kicks and penalties and all that stuff, and they got ever more desperate as the game went on, as did Arteta. I think giving them a red card, send them to the stand, does that change anything as far as the game's concerned? Well, I mean, if he's not running up and down the line and barking orders to his players on the touchline, then it does help in that regard. Yeah, it does keep him away from that. I don't think that in itself is a issue to worry too much about. And like I say, anyway, Arteta didn't get red card as far as I'm aware anyway. So slightly moot. Klopp, on the other hand, Jesus Christ, what a whingy bastard that guy is. He makes a lot of fair points, does Klopp. But you know, he's almost the perfect manager for the whingy city of Liverpool, and like the constant victims thing. It's like he just whinges all the time, and he's got a hell of a team in front of him, and they've spent an awful lot of money. And yeah, all right, this season might not be the greatest they've ever had. You know, that's life, that's football. You know, teams get better, teams get worse. But for God's sake, just, you know, put those stupid joke teeth back in your mouth for at least 1 or 2 games, and let's not hear a word out your stupid face, please, because it's getting unbelievably tiresome. Like it's to the point now where nobody even wants to care what he's saying. You could have the greatest point in the world, but he's bitched and whinged so much that who's going to even bother wanting to listen to it? Because I don't.
No, agreed. Absolutely agreed on that one. So now we're going to come up to the best part of the show, the bit I always like, and that is looking at the league table. It's still looking glorious. It's still looking pretty. It's still looking very sexual. It still gets me very twitchy. Newcastle United still sat pretty in third, just, however, on goal difference, far superior goal difference to Man United, who are sat in fourth on the same points. Given the start of the year, how everything was panning out, and the fact we had multiple draws, shitload of draws in there compared to the rest of the teams, are you both still surprised that we are top 4? Or do you think it's a case of we actually still thoroughly deserve this and we're going to stay there as long as we possibly can? I'll come to you first on that, Bobby.
No, because our winning streak and everything like that means we deserve to be up there. I mean, it seems, you know, you can't sort of remember when we lost a game and all that, and we've played all the, you know, the top 6 and majority away, and we've only lost to Liverpool. So, no, we deserve to be where we are. Manchester United, in fairness, are playing some good football and are coming hard, but the goal difference as well tells you we deserve to be where we're at. You know, plus 21. You know, we've had a lot of chats in our chat about the next sequence of games, and our resident Nostradamus, Dimmy, predicts we'll pull away into third position, I think it is, or fourth, or whatever it is. He thinks we're there already. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, you know, it's sitting pretty. You know, the next run of games will tell us a lot about where we're at.
Now, for yourself, Lee, different question, yeah? With the draw against Leeds and the draw against Arsenal, are you thinking our top 4 place over the next 2-3 games is now a lot more under threat than what it was as the final whistle went at Leicester?
Well, top 4 wise it is, yeah. I mean, he's got Spurs there in 5th on 33. Man United's got a game in hand over us, so they're almost certainly going to go above us and 3 points above us, albeit with an inferior goal difference, but they're chipping away at that as well. They're in a good form as Man United. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I think probably we're fighting for the top 6. I think the next set of fixtures, I'm not sure if you've got a slide for this, but the next set of fixtures are pretty favourable for us, and the kind of, I think it's the next 5 or 6, and they culminate against Liverpool at home at St James's. So that could be pretty instrumental in kind of securing our place in that top echelon of the table. But I mean, the first question, it doesn't seem right to me. Like it's you kind of like when it first happened, it was I kind of forgot about it, and I looked at it the next few days later, and I was like, oh Christ almighty, that's right, we've been 4th or whatever it was at the time, and then went up to 2nd just the other week, potentially being 4th when Man United play their game in hand. But it's been an absolutely tremendous season. I just hope that we have the fitness levels, the legs, the semi-favorable injury situation for the rest of the season, because either of those things will probably derail us pretty heavily. The squad depth isn't quite good enough to see us out if we do incur 1 or 2. I mean, especially if we incur an injury. Depending on where it is, it could be pretty critical. Like if Botman gets injured, you know, I mean, you might be thinking of up the top there, but if Botman gets injured, you bring in Burn and Target's already injured, so you keep burning out and put Lascelles in the middle. Lascelles in the middle with Shaw. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, so we need either to reinforce heavily this January, which by all accounts we're not going to do, but that could just be gamesmanship, or we just need to be very, very fortunate with certain things towards the end of the season. But it is look at that, man, 3rd place. How can you not be happy with that?
Yeah, we literally it is dreamland. I remember during the World Cup, every other day I would just go on the BBC website and look at the league table and just sit smiling at it, because it's just something we're just not used to. But long may it continue. But as you mentioned, Lee, the next set of fixtures for the teams in the current top 6, we do have a slide for that one. Let me just get rid of this banner just to get rid of that so everyone can see. So they are in order of their current league position. So Arsenal's next 5 games are Spurs away, Man United home, Everton away, Brentford home, and City away. Now, for those that are able to see this slide on YouTube, the teams that are highlighted in red, that is basically everyone that's playing somebody else in the top 6 right now. Our fixtures, we've got Fulham at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, Bournemouth away, then Liverpool at home. That's 5 run of games, on paper at least, where you'd think 4, maybe 5 of those are winnable. Would you agree with that, Bobby? I mean, what would be your points expectation from those 5 games?
13 points. I think all of them are winnable. Palace haven't been great in form lately. Bournemouth have given us a bit of a hard slog a couple of times we played them, because they like to play 5 at the back. So wait and see. But anywhere from 10 points to 12 points, I'd be very, very, very delighted with, and that would probably cement our place in the top 4. And you look at the other fixtures, as you said, and Man United have got Man City and Arsenal. Tottenham have got Man City twice, which is great. So who knows? Let's hope we can pull away.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Man City's fixtures, they've got Chelsea in the early hours of tomorrow morning or afternoon, late evening, wherever you're watching this. But it's early morning for us. So that gets rid of Chelsea from Man City straight away. But then they've got effectively a double header against 2 in the top 6, Man United away, then Spurs at home. That's 2 big fixtures, or 3 big fixtures there for Man City. They've definitely got the squad and capability to get a result against all 3 of those. But Lee, you touched on before how Man United, they're getting banging on form, and they'll want some type of retribution from, was it that 6-2 Moreland that got it? The Etihad earlier on in the season. You'd think Man United would be well up for the fight on this one?
Oh, well, I mean, they're on a pretty good run. It's favourable to us that they're going to play City. City kind of feel a little bit like it sounds ridiculous to say this because it's City, but they feel a little bit like they're wobbling. Man United are on charge. Arsenal are on the charge. It's incredible that we haven't even got Chelsea on this top of the table fixture list. That's just how bad they've slipped down the league. They're in 10th, I think it showed on that last one. Liverpool have you've only highlighted Newcastle as being in the top there, but they've got Brighton away, which are not a pushover at all. Even though Arsenal destroyed them, Brighton then just responded by destroying Villa. They've got Chelsea straight after that, and with Chelsea, very expensive squad. You just don't know what's going to happen with that. Wolves, no easy pushover either, although they do struggle to score. Everton, absolute shit, but it's a derby, so you never know. And then us. For the points total, I think it's about right. I think it's pretty much what everyone's saying, apart from Marcus, who's going for 15 points. I'll probably go for 12 to 13. So 10 to 13, something like that. There will be probably 1 or 2 draws that you don't expect. I'm just really keen for us to beat Liverpool at home. I think that would be nice. It would not necessarily a justification for anything, but they did whinge like schoolgirls, even though they beat us. And it'll be at home early in the season, and it'll be nice to just be kick the boot in them a little bit, raise our ceiling a little bit higher, and just watch them whinge a little bit more there. That would be quite nice. But yeah, I think from those fixtures there, we've certainly got the easier of the. Was it 5? 5, yeah. So we could be sitting pretty in the top 4. It'd be interesting to see where we are against Man City. I guess we're hoping for a City win then, or do we just want to draw?
City to win, I'd say. I want to try and keep Man United as far off as possible.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah,
Now, one other key thing to bring in here: once those run of 5 games have ended, European competitions kick back in again. So you got the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Europa Conference League. So they're all going to get a heap more fixtures. All 5 of those teams, excluding us, have those to take in. And Liverpool play us 3 or 4 days before they play Real Madrid at Anfield. That's got to weigh heavy in the back of their mind looking at that, because they're not going to win the league. So they're not going to get Champions League qualification that way. They might not get Champions League qualification by league place. So they're probably thinking, we've got to go ahead and win this Champions League this year if we're going to get in it. And that has to weigh heavy on them. And it's got to be in our favour significantly, albeit we could still be in the cups. But looking at that run there, Liverpool have a very tough run. Yes, they don't have many in the top 6. Spurs, I'm not really worried about Spurs, just like what Jack said. They will put on a few good runs every now and again, but nothing overly consistent. Man United, like I said, they're picking up form. We've had a little blip, but that's all it is. I'm sure we will come good. Man City, they will just destroy teams for the fun of it with Haaland there. But Arsenal, this is where I can say Arsenal slipping up and City closing the gap and actually overtaking them within this 5-game period. I don't know why. I just think Arsenal, this game may have just rattled them a little bit, but we will see what happens come the final whistle of that Man City game in 5 games' time of that one. But I think City will overtake them on that side of things. That brings a conclusion to the Arsenal review. Before we move on to the Cup game against Sheffield Wednesday, I'll just get your man of the match, and I'll come to you first, Bobby.
Sven Botman, probably. I'll give it to him again, with special mention to Big Joe. If you put that chance away, I would have said him, but he was amazing. His energy and the way he helps out Dan Burn at left back and just gets around the pitch is just it's unreal to see. So, but I'll give it to Botman, who was just a Rolls Royce, and he's a Rolls Royce for us. And God, I can't wait to be watching this bloke for years to come.
Your man of match, Lee?
Joe Linton. Like Eddie says himself, he's just an unbelievable athlete. He just non-stop running the whole time. Showed up that left side when it looked like Arsenal were just going to overrun Dan Burn at every single opportunity. But still had the opportunities to get a pitch. He had the opportunity to score at the back post. He's just an unbelievable machine. Botman was great. Actually, Botman survived a penalty shout as well, didn't he? Because he had that kind of grapple where he sort of twisted the guy down and lobbed him on the floor. But I think just because of his defensive, Miggy did very well. Yeah, I mean, Miggy's non-stop running from Marcus there. He says Miggy. But Miggy did it all kind of with himself in many ways. It's like his normal kind of everyday sort of Miggy. He didn't necessarily have any great shot at goal or anything like that. But Joe, I think, playing out of position, defending a lot as well, and still having the ability to get up the pitch and potentially score, makes him man of the match for me. He was tremendous. Hope he's not injured.
Yeah, snap eye. I'm actually going to go against the grain here and go Fabian Schär. I think he had a solid performance. That again is going under the radar because everyone knows Botman's going to have a good game, and it's just expected now. But Shaw, he's still got that lingering part of the Steve Bruce era, let's say. And again, £3 million we paid for him. That's 10% of what we paid for Sven Botman. That he's turning into be a bargain of the century, the modern day Rob Lee, if you want to call it, for how good he's currently been. I just think he needs more praise than what everybody else is getting. Trippier's getting it for leading the line. Botman's getting it because he's Botman. Burns getting it because he's playing out of position and doing a good job. But not much is being said about Shaw, and I think he needs to get the credit he deserves.
He's doing very well, absolutely. I think he needs Botman alongside him to really kind of boost him up a little bit. Like if you stick him next to Lascelles, he'll probably revert back to the old Shaw who does stupid fouls and gives away, the odd penalty here and there, and I don't know. I still have that kind of lingering feeling that he's going to do something ridiculous at some point and give away some kind of ridiculous foul, or stupid, It always feels like he's got that in him, and he dives a lot as well. Plays on the head injuries and that sort of stuff when that's happened. But doing very well as part of the unit, absolutely.
Like I said, for 3 million, you can't really argue, an absolute bargain, But yeah, so that brings the end to the match review. So now we're going to move on to the FA Cup game away to Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough. So it is a UK 6 o'clock kickoff. It is live on BBC One for those watching back home. We've got it on Paramount Plus here, I think it is. The game will be replayed at St James's if there is a draw. Now, I know the likes of Klopp and his cronies in the Big Six wanted to scrap third-run replays, but it is crucial for the lower league clubs, these replays, because it gives them a shit ton of cash. And Sheffield Wednesday, they've had a bit of a hard run right now. They're currently sat in League One, albeit they're in second. They are one of the old clubs of English football. But yeah, they're coming back into the Championship at this current rate. But in terms of this game and how you see it playing out, do you expect how to field a full strength 11, or the lineup that you've potentially chose, which we'll put on screen right now? Just get that comment off there. Do you think this is the one he will go with, or do you think he may go for a little bit stronger? And I'll let you read the team out, Shelley.
Oh, me? All right, yeah. So we've got Bobby. They got Lewis, Byrne. Lewis is obviously a question mark straight off the mark there. Byrne, Lascelles, and Manchillo. They got ASM, who needs the fitness. Anderson, who just needs to get a game. Longstaff, who could probably do with a sit down, and as could Bruno, but there's nobody to replace them. Murphy, and then Chris Wood up front. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Richie. And Lewis just doesn't seem to be able to get on the pitch at all. And we did see Richie not so long ago. Maybe it's another opportunity to stick him in the shop window if we intend on flogging him. Who knows what's going on with Lewis? But yeah, that might be a difference. But I think it's just lack of squad depth elsewhere that probably restricts us from doing a full-on change. And in any event, Eddie Howe will want to win this game. So, even whatever team he goes with, I imagine the rest of the first teamers will be on the bench. He did that in the early rounds of the League Cup, and I think he'll do the same thing again. He does intend on taking us as far as he can in these cups, which is brilliant. But yeah, I mean, Bobby, you and I talked about this. Like Longy and Bruno could do with a rest. Longy's running more than he's ever run his entire life, I'm pretty sure. Bruno, is playing every game. But we haven't got anybody to replace these guys, have we? No, nobody you can trust anyway.
No, there's no depth. I think it's interesting this January what the club will do. I think we're in a situation where they're probably double checking. I think at the start, I think they were about getting these young players in and trying to just get the underlaying of the the age and stuff like that of the squad down. But the longer this goes, and the more we're in chances to win a cup or a trophy and finish in the top four, that we really have to look at that, because we went through it and we'd like Longstaff and Bruno to rest, but there is absolutely no one to replace them. And with Shelby injured and probably gone for the season or a large part of it, it's another person we've got to replace. And, we both didn't want to put Bruno and Longy in, but there was no other choice, to be fair.
Would you not even risk any of the youngsters that made a few cameos over in Saudi Arabia or in was it the Leicester game they came on for in the league? I can't remember. Lewis Miley. He made a few appearances. Do you reckon he's got a chance of making the squad at all, even if it's a place on the bench? Are you on that one, Bobby?
He might make the bench. I agree with Lee. I think we'll have most of our first teamers on the bench if we get a few depth players in, like the likes of Manquillo and Lascelles and stuff like that. I think Shah and Botman will be on the bench just in case. Miggy, Wilson will be there. So he might make the bench, but look, it's hard to tell, really. I don't know what, they're looking like fitness-wise. So it will be interesting, as that comment said from BT. We've got Leicester at home 3 days later.
Yeah, that's a quarter final. I would imagine
Yes.
that Eddie Howe's probably thinking this is a third rounder against a League One club. On the balance of probability, this should be the easier game than against Premier League opposition in the quarterfinals, with a chance to, potentially one game later after that to be in the final. So I think certainly for this game, it'll be a kind of second string as much as possible. Obviously, you have to be praying to Jeebus that we don't get any injuries. Do you think there's any chance, Craigie? I mean, maybe you can answer this one, even though you're hosting. What about Dubravka in place of Pope? Would you even risk that?
To be honest, I would. I would much rather, and I know this sounds really bad, Dubravka picks up a knock than Pope picks up a knock, just because he is the better of the two. And if we lose Pope, then that is a big chunk of the defensive side of the team gone. Give him 90 minutes. I can't imagine he's going to get much pressure from Sheffield Wednesday. You never know. I mean, the other home team still have the crowd. Hillsborough will be pumping, because I can't remember the last time they had a Premier League team at their ground. I know they beat Southampton on penalties to get to this stage in the competition, but I'm not sure if that was down at St Mary's or at their place, regardless. But it'll be a cracking game, cracking atmosphere. There always is at Sheffield Wednesday. They did just come off a massive 5-0 win, as BT just said there, over Cambridge. However, they are struggling towards the foot of the table of that one, so I wouldn't really read too much into that. Don't know much about Sheffield Wednesday, except that they are quite a historic team, and they're probably in a league or two below where they should be, given their time in English football. They've been in the Premier League for quite a while as well. But in terms of overall results, how do you see the game coming out? Do you think it'll be a bit like Tranmere, where Tranmere just came out to kick the shit out of us and try and snatch a win that way? Or do you think it will actually be a football game when we get a few passes strung together? I'll open that to either of you.
I mean, Sheffield Wednesday in many ways have nothing to lose. For all we know, they'll play their second string. I mean, we don't even know if they're going to come out fully first teamed or not. You could then also counter to that. You could argue that these kind of competitions, the FA Cup, are so well liked in the UK because it allows the smaller teams to advance into the later stages. If they do well anyway, and pick up the money, but also get all the TV time and all the rest of it. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I think probably we will feel our way into this game. I don't think we're going to go down there as really big bollocks and kind of expect just a steamroller. Sheffield Wednesday, Eddie Howe's got too much respect for other teams anyway. But we've got to be careful with some of these guys we've picked here. You've got the likes of Byrne. If he gets injured, what do we do at left back in the Premier League? Because Target's out for God knows how long. You're then looking at the likes of Lewis and Ritchie, but who would go into the centre? Would probably be Lascelles, and then you're struggling there. If ASM gets injured, you don't have any backup to Joe Linton on the left. Joe Linton should be in the middle, but then you've got Longstaff and Bruno. If they get injured, it starts. And if Wood gets injured, we haven't got another striker. I mean, it just all starts to become very interesting, doesn't it? When you start playing your first teamers in these kind of games, and you won't be playing on necessarily the best pitch either. So
no.
I think probably we'll be just looking for a comfortable game where we're not chasing the ball too much. Hopefully, not getting kicked up the arse too much. Maybe he's win 1 or 2-0 and just get out of there and think about Leicester, because Leicester is the bigger game, I think, for where we are right now.
Would either of you risk Isak in this game, even if it's just a place on the bench? Coming on that one, Bobby?
I wouldn't. If I put him on the bench, I wouldn't want him getting on the park. Wouldn't mind him being on the bench just to go through, getting into the squad and, being around the boys and, getting a feel for it again. But I wouldn't want him to get 1 minute on the park, not in a game like this. I don't think it's worth the risk. No is the answer to that, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's just on the bench, he's going to be sitting in sub-zero temperatures, probably freezing his absolute bollocks off on a wooden plank for a seat. That's not going to be great for his recovery, is it? Even if he's got one of those heated bloody jacket things. I think Eddie Howe likes to ease injury players back into it. I cannot think that this would be the game he would do it. in. And if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to play them, you're just wasting the space on the bench. Then you might as well use somebody that you might as well pick someone for the bench that you might actually use. That, nah, I wouldn't risk him against Leicester either. I'd wait until he's actually ready and play him when he's ready.
As MTR1 says here, I'm scared to risk Bruno in this game. So are we. But literally, we could not find.
What do you do? I mean, can we change formation and so that we don't need two midfielders and some kind of? I mean, the injury to Shelby was a real terrible bit of timing for us. Real bad stroke of luck. Well, Armani is asking when do you play Isaac? Then, as I just said, you play him when he's ready. If he's not ready, you don't risk him.
I'd look at the next.
Even when he's ready, you ease him in.
Bench. Yeah.
Yeah, even when he's ready, you ease him in. ASM, who's played for the club quite a lot, he didn't get straight back in as soon as he was fit. It's taken ages and ages and ages, and he's still not even in the team yet. Yeah, you've got to be careful with these guys. He's we probably need Isaac, big dog, for the rest of the season. Imagine if he plays against Sheffield Wednesday and gets injured. Imagine the headlines on that. Yeah. That'd be a Steve Bruce era kind of decision.
MTR1 says Willock, but he looked dead against Arsenal.
He did. He was knackered.
Yeah, absolutely knackered. So,
bloody yoga stretches.
Him or Bruno, you'd rather lose Willock than Bruno, but I don't think he was in any shape or form to start this game, and it's probably he needs a bit of a rest. So look, it's really hard. Our depth is showing at the moment. We're much higher than we plan to be, and we're in all these other cups as well that we probably haven't been expected as well. So, it's a hard one, and we'll see what January brings us because I think we need some more depth.
Look at this from BT, Craig.
Yeah. So I'm going to read this out for those that are going to be listening on the audio pod. So BT said, Forestieri, who will miss the Owls' next 3 fixtures after admitting a Football Association charge of violent conduct. Forestieri was the Hillsborough club's main goal threat. That's a good bit of news for us straight away there. I don't think that they'd have much that's going to threaten us to a certain degree, unless Dimmy's big mate Jamal Lascelles decides to have one of his early Newcastle career games for us with a bit of Steve McLaren in there. But it will be a tough game. It's live on TV. Hillsborough, they'll be loving the fact that they've got not just a Premier League team, but a Premier League sat in the top 4. And the media is all on Newcastle right now because of the takeover, because of where we are on the league. We're unbeaten, run everything like that. And you got to remember, it was a 3rd round last year where we got beat off, was it Cambridge? At St James's Park 1-0. And everyone thought that was just doom and gloom. They've just went and smashed Cambridge 5-0. Obviously, that was a year ago. So anything can happen in the world of football, especially in the FA Cup. It is the competition of dreams. So we will see what happens. But now we're going to get on to predictions for that game. And I'll come to you first, Bobby.
Jesus. I'll say 2-0 to us. I'd like it to be 2-0 and, nice and comfortable, not exerting ourselves and, be 2-0 up in the 60th minute and then just dive and play all these time-wasting tactics and just get out of there unharmed. I'll say 2-0. Yours, Lee?
I was thinking 2-0. I might just be a bit of a dafty and I'll go for a 3-1. The way they're going to come out the traps, they'll probably just come right at us. They've got now to lose. They might get a sneaky 1-0, maybe some dodgy deflection or even a penalty even. But I was just thinking that Eddie Howe wants to win every single game, especially with the way that we are right now, because every win, even if it's not the Premier League, feeds into the next game of the Premier League. You have that top to bottom winning mentality. So he's going to want to win this game, absolutely. And I think, our fitness levels should really start blowing away Sheffield Wednesday at some point in the second half. That's usually where it works with these lower level teams. I'll go for 3-1, but it could be 1-0, could be anything.
I'll go with 2-0, same as Bobby. So hopefully we get the win. Last thing we'd want is a replay at St James's Park, and even worse, what we want is a defeat this stage of the cup competition again. But that brings up the preview for the cup game. We will do a review of that one on Sunday night, so keep an eye out for that one. I think it is Dimmy and Keegan on that one, so that will be coming at you Sunday night our time. I was going to go through some questions that we've had in the live chat since we started about an hour and a half ago. One question right here, and Bobby, I'm just going to give you or let you update all those that are watching on Garang Kwal. I think that's how it's pronounced. Kuyal, I'm not sure. But Genwell has asked, actually just a random question, not match related, but Newcastle are saying Kuyal Kwal, however. Could we see a possible Newcastle United academy based in Australia? And what news have you got for us on Garansky that was from earlier on this afternoon? Sorry.
Does Bobby know about Australian academies?
I'm trying to get a Newcastle United based academy, my academy. So if Mairdad or Jamie Rubin or anyone's watching this, yell out, get in touch. Yeah, Amanda, get in touch because we've already got a couple of products going to West Ham, so I'm trying to get them to Newcastle. But that could happen. I think Newcastle United will purchase an A-League club if the A-League's still around in a year, which it doesn't look positive at the moment. But I think they want to set up a similar thing to City, so they could base it out of that. There's a couple of clubs, including Newcastle Jets here, that could influence that. So yeah, quite possibly. On Garang, he's currently in Edinburgh, so I think he'll go to Hearts. As Myers here, yep, there is 3 Australian players already there, so you'll be comfortable with that. And I don't like the Scottish League. I think it's a bit of a hacks league outside of Celtic and Rangers, but it is for a short term, and he will be acclimatised being in Edinburgh to Newcastle. So it's a lovely city as well. So
also pretty close.
Trust, yeah, exactly right. So trust in the club. So I think he's off. So I think that'll be announced. He's there now. So I think the formalities will be done, and maybe tomorrow, this time tomorrow, we'll be talking about his loan move to Hearts or Kilmarnock, but I think it'll be Hearts.
Yeah, want to watch.
Ben, one of our members here, he says Hearts would be a terrible option. Won't get tough opposition. Now, he's been playing in the A-League, which I have seen about this much of the A-League. I've only watched games where Garansky has played. I've never watched anything else. But I can't imagine the quality of the A-League is much worse than what the SPL is. I imagine, if anything, they're on par. But it's a league which is going to toughen up, if anything, purely the fact that he's going to learn how to get kicked, he's going to get knocked, pushed down, that type of thing. Where would you rather see Garansky go then, Bobby? Would you stay in England or go to the continent?
There was rumours Reading were after him as well. I would have liked to see him go and test himself in the Championship, but he might not have got the game time that he'll get at Hearts. In a perfect world, I reckon Spain or Portugal would have been really good. But then, I'm starting to think about it. He has to get used to the weather in Newcastle and British football. So, as you said, he's played in the A-League, which we all here, the 3 of us, don't rate very highly. I don't think outside of Celtic and Rangers and maybe, another club in Scotland, it's much better. But maybe that's the idea. He can be acclimatised in the weather and stuff in the league, that he'll be sort of known, the quality isn't that much greater than the A-League.
And your thoughts on him potentially going to Scotland, Lee?
Just thought as well as Hibs, that could be another option, isn't it? I was just checking out. They're in the Edinburgh team as well. Still in the SPL. I've just had to check that just in case they bugger off to another league. The weather thing, yes, all right. But I mean, how many kind of South Americans have we had? We've got Bruno Guimaraes, who didn't seem to have any issues getting used to shithouse weather up in the northeast. I think that's probably an issue that's slightly overplayed. Joe Linton didn't have any issues with it. I think just from a technical aspect, to bring on Gwal's technical abilities, and he is a very handy technical player. He likes to take his men on. He's got a great cross in him as well. He's got some good vision. I would like to see that developed, and I'm not entirely convinced you can see that developing all that well over in the UK. I think probably I would have preferred him to go to a league that does allow that kind of more technical aspect to come through, like you say, Bobby Spain or Portugal. But I think ultimately, as long as he's getting game time, and because I mean, don't forget he's not really even. Well, until very recently, he wasn't even starting games for the Mariners. It was only when it was getting towards the end that they weren't even they knew they weren't keeping him, that they actually started to give him starts. He needs to have game time under his belt. So as long as he isn't getting snapped, by some bloody Scottish rugby player, or breaking his ankle on the frigging potato fields of Scotland, the frozen potato fields of Scotland, tripping over a frigging turnip and breaking his kneecap. As long as he can do those things, avoid those things, and get some game time, then I'm all for it, But yeah, I think I'd rather he went to a place where his technical skills could get developed, if I'm being picky.
I just worry because the last big talent coming out of Australia was a kid by the name of Arzani, and he went to Celtic from the A-League, and he just had a terrible time. He did get injured, but he wasn't fitting in, and we all said at the time the Scottish League wasn't the right league for him. We thought the Dutch League or the Belgium League would have been right. So, I just don't want to see history repeating here with Garang. The good thing is it's only 6 months, hopefully. So, whereas Arzani got picked up by Celtic as a player. So, we'll see how this one plays out, and hopefully good luck to him, because he's a kid with a huge amount of potential for us, and I can't wait to see him get a preseason under Eddie.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I would think one of the reasons why they may be going to Scotland as well is so they can keep a relatively close eye on them. Like I say, they have sent quite a few of our youth players north of the border over the years, and some of them have come back with some good experience. You should get some good game time, which is obviously going to be critical at this early stage of his career. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Hopefully, he maybe not necessarily start games, but to make a few subs, get the odd half an hour every now and again. That, again, is going to be crucial to his development, and see what he does in the summer, like what you've just said there, Bobby. Whether he goes on loan again or whether he be part of the main team, we will see. Now, just one other thing I want to touch on, and this is a bit of transfer news with the transfer window being open. We will do a transfer window special as it gets a little bit more exciting. But Ivan Fresneda, I think I pronounced that correctly, and again, I want to try and pronounce the club here, Real Valladolid. Is that correct? No, I've got that wrong, Bobby.
sounds
but
wrong.
I can't be any better. But it's not right. But yeah, I can't do it either. So it's all good.
Well, apparently, it's a right back we are very keen, very interested in. I don't know a lot about him, but apparently you've seen him play against Real Madrid, Bobby, or you've seen the highlights. Is that correct?
Yeah, I watched him against Real Madrid, and he tore. Oh, God, I can't forget that Real Madrid player's name. He's a young kid that's taken everyone by storm. His name escapes me. But yeah, he actually tore him to shreds. And, the one thing I like about he's very Trippier-like as well, with his, his stature and everything like that. But this kid has got amazing technique, dribbling technique, gets himself out of bad situations, good passing, good movement. So he's definitely a high talent. I know there's a few big clubs that we're looking at him. Hopefully the reports are it's almost a done deal. Let's hope we can get him through the door. And I think 18 years old, he's still young, but Trippier can take him under his wing and, make him into a Premier League player.
Is that a squad depth signing, or is that going to be just one for the future?
Well, the talk is if we sign him, he's going to be loaned straight back to Real. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the other part of it, to his current club to finish the season there, and then he'll join us in the summer. So that's part of the deal, apparently. No idea what the fee would be. Apparently that's still well under wraps. But yeah, the deal is supposedly quite close. So maybe as we get one out with Garansky, we get another one in with this young Spanish lad who name has just escaped me. But it is Ivan Fresneda. Yep, there we go. So he is definitely wanting to keep an eye out. So keep an eye on the social channels for that. And hopefully we've got some good news. And we've got our second signing of this winter window, with Garansky being the first. I'm just going to ask for anybody that's watching, coming live, if you have any questions, please fire them in the chat now, as we will be ending this chat within the next few minutes or so. But rounding things off, this was obviously our first game of 2023. How would you sum up 2022, the full year, Bobby, in one sentence?
In one sentence.
Yeah, tough one. I know.
The making of the new Newcastle.
Nice.
And same question to you, Lee, but you've had about 20 seconds to think of your answer.
I still haven't got an answer. I'll just say one word: sensational.
Sensational. Well, I'm going to go with the beast is stirring. Just getting out of his bed.
So,
Mint.
so what is
So
porridge?
that's for a sentence, but one word will do it. But yeah, it's been an absolute sensational 2022. If 2023 is half as good, then we're going to be off to an absolute flyer. We are into the quarterfinal of the League Cup. We've got the FA Cup coming. We're sat third in the league. Everything is looking pretty. Hopefully, we can make one or two signings to strengthen the squad this window and push on for that all-important Champions League place. Just got one last little question before we do tie this up, lads. And I asked this question to you, Bobby, I think when we done like a mid-season review, when the World Cup was on. So I'll come to you first on this one, Lee. Would you trade now a League Cup victory or an FA Cup victory over the Champions League qualification?
So we can only win one of those things, is it?
Yeah, so you got the chance of either the FA Cup or the League Cup and whatever spoils and riches come with it, or you can qualify for the Champions League. Which one are you going for?
I'm probably going to go against what everyone says. I would probably go for the Champions League because
Bobby,
first of all, it indicates that we've had a great season and therefore a good squad and a good manager and everything else is great. And also that means we are in the richest club competition in the world because those other two things don't make you any money. You have the chance to get in front of all these fantastic players out there on the continent and get your name in lights again, which we haven't had for a very long time. I know you get into Europe on the other ones, but I think Champions League for the prestige and for basically the next step in our evolution. But I do think the League Cup and FA Cup will come as well, and it'll be absolutely tremendous. Don't get me wrong.
So it seems like Dex and Ben agree with you. Now, Bobby, if I remember rightly, you said you would go for the League Cup win. Is that still your thoughts now?
As we get closer and closer to making that top four, it sort of it changes. But I just to see us lift a trophy, like a worthwhile trophy, not an Intertoto Cup. A League Cup or an FA Cup would be just as important for us as a club to win something than making Europe again. I think I just couldn't imagine the feeling that the club will have by winning a trophy. The bus the bus parade through the streets of the city and the celebrations, and it's been a long time.
Would we do that for a League Cup? Would we do that for a League Cup? FA Cup, yes, but League Cup, it's such a wanky competition.
I think, we would. We'd celebrate.
It's classed as a major trophy.
It is a trophy. You put it down as a, I just think, I prefer to win the FA Cup to the League Cup, but I'm not going to be picky at this stage of our development. Like if you had told us at the start of the season, we'd have a really good run in all the cups and we could make 8th or 7th, we would have taken it, wouldn't we?
Correct.
We thought that's where our development was. So I just think, and there was a question earlier by one of the people in the chats about the squad depth for Europe and building that, and will we be too quickly getting into Europe and all that sort of thing. So I think as Dex comment was pretty good. No, I think winning a trophy is something that I can't imagine, and I would take it. I'll take it right now.
I completely agree with you, Bobby. Trophy over Champions League every day of the week. I just can't comprehend what I would do. That final whistle goes, Newcastle United are crowned champions of something, and Jamal Lascelles and Trippier walk up them steps at Wembley to lift that trophy. or it's a parade in the middle of the pitch, however they do it these days, I genuinely don't know how I would respond. I know I'd cry. I would cry like a little schoolgirl that's just been kicked in the rat. I genuinely. Second?
You get emotional just watching like St James's Park flash across the screen for 5 seconds on a bloody news piece. You're like, lads, I'm getting emotional over here. I've just seen James's Park on the telly. It's like, how am I quick, man? You're a grown man. You get
I am an
emotional
emotional man when it comes to my football club, but you know, I was at the 98 FA Cup final when we got beat. I watched the 99 Cup final when I was in London. Didn't actually go to the game. And I was in Cardiff for the semi-final for Man United as well. Never seen us lift a major trophy. I had the despair of seeing us lose a major trophy. And I genuinely, I don't know what I would do. My palms have got all sweaty just thinking about the idea that Newcastle are champions of something. It just doesn't compute with our minds because we've just had it ingrained on us that we don't win trophies. It's just something that we do. And does that not just play on your emotions at all? Just thinking of lifting a trophy? No?
No, not
That you mean?
it's the shitty Carabao Cup. No, I couldn't give a shit about the Carabao Cup. Like, you know, Dex kind of touched on it, I suppose. You get into the Champions League, the ultimate competition where all the elite players want to be. That boosts the stature of the club just by being in a competition from the doldrums of where we are right now. You then have every reason to go out and really expand your squad, get some proper quality in. You make a fair bit of money, not that we need it necessarily, but it's great for FPP if you're going to play by those rules. You don't get any of that stuff really if you just win the Carabao Cup. You just get a tin pot that you just sort of wave around and everyone goes, you dickheads, it's just a Carabao Cup. Like if it's the FA Cup, you can kind of make an argument that it's got the history behind it. And yes, I would be very happy to see the FA Cup get raised, but that would almost certainly come as a natural consequence of improving the squad, the club, and everything around it by being in the Champions League in the first place. So I think, given the one or the other, I would prefer us to get the Champions League first. I mean, it's crazy we've announced the conversation.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. Because this time, excuse me, this time last season, we were all thinking which stadium in the Championship had the best pies, you know, because that's where we were heading. It was, but yeah, the fact we're having this conversation is bonkers. It is insane, but I think that is a good way to end this podcast here. I'll let everybody in the chat ponder over that, whether they would want a trophy or Champions League if you had to pick the either or. Just one last comment from BT there. What was that? Carabao Cup final, Sunday, 26th of February, 2023, before the season ends and into Europe. That's got to be.
I didn't mention the fact that you do get a European spot out of that. That's fair enough, but it's the kind of was it the European Conference, the shit one, the one that also doesn't give you any money, and all that does then is give you like a shit competition, need money, and then extra games you got to play. So wouldn't be a bad step on the line on the way to becoming a top team. Now, don't get me wrong, any of those things, any of those individual things, I'm very happy, Lee. All right. But like, if you ask me which one would I much prefer to have at this stage of our progression, Champions League is the ultimate aim of all of these teams. All these teams in our league are aiming, well, not all of them, but the top 6 are all trying to get the Champions League, win the Premier League, get the Champions League, because that sustains the club for years on end and gets all the good players in. That's what we need.
Well, again, just like the Dan Burn penalty option, I respectively disagree with on that one, and I think me and Bobby take the majority of the vote of this 2-1. So. You know, it's Cup over Champions League for this pod, and I don't care what everyone says in the chat. They can have their opinion as well. But as far as me and Bobby are concerned, they're wrong, and that is a very, very good place to end it on. So thanks for everyone that has joined in on the live chat. If you don't already, please subscribe to the channel, become a member if you really want to help us out. Again, it's just $1.49 here in Australia, or only 85p per month back in the UK. That helps us out massively for what we want to do and stuff for the channel moving forward. And if you're listening on the audio channels, please leave a comment, any questions for the next one of these we do. Again, we do this every Thursday, so get your questions in when you can. But yeah, thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Lee. We kind of ran over a fair bit of topics here, but we will see you all on the next one. Keep an eye out for the Sheffield Wednesday Cup review. Then it's on to the Leicester review. Then we're back for Fulham in the Premier League. Thanks, lads. Have a good night, and I will see you all on the next one.
See you,
Cheers,
mate.
boys. How are the Toon?
Hey.